So I was thinking about some of the stuff that I think I said yesterday. Not sure. I think I said it yesterday. I think I was complaining about how a lot of people, they just seem immune to being woken up. They seem immune to evidence. They seem immune to drawing reasonable conclusions because they have this okay, I think I know a way to frame this. There is a video series that talks about a concept called transactional analysis. It's really old. I'm gonna guess it's like 13 years old or some crap. I've always remembered it though because this dude that made the series, he makes lots of videos. Well, or he used to. And when he makes videos, man, theremin trees, if you're never gonna see this. Like, when you make videos, man, they're gold. You're printing gold, man. I just gotta say, man. Anyway, I probably misapply a lot of his concepts and stuff, and I'm not even saying that they're his concepts. He's kind of like the Carl Sagan of a lot of psychological crap, right? Transactional analysis, I don't think is anything he invented. You can go on Wikipedia. There's like entire articles on the on this stuff. But anyway, I remember very specifically when he was talking about, I think it might have been the second or the third video or something, but it wasn't the first. He started talking about gimmicks and how everybody has gimmicks. I'm probably misapplying the terminology. Gimmicks that can be played upon, right? Like if somebody comes over to your party and they're like, they're breaking your dishes. I think that was the example he used. It's been a good minute since I've seen this video, right? Like I've been watching him for like 15 dang years, So this might have been like 13 years ago. I have no idea. Maybe not. I have no idea. I have no idea how old this video, but I know it's really old. Somebody at a dinner party, they show up to your house, and they're drunk or they're acting tipsy. They break some of your dishes, and then you confront them about it, and they're like, man, just chill out, bruh. What's your problem, or whatever, or something like that. And they play upon. Man, this applies to so many things. They're playing upon maybe you have a desire or a need deep in your soul where you're just like, I want to be reasonable. I want to be reasonable. That's who I am. Maybe it's part of your identity. Who knows? For whatever reason, you have this want or desire or need to be seen or viewed as a reasonable person. And if the other person knows that, they can actually leverage that against you, right? Such that they can take advantage of your good graces, right? When I really think about it, I could just say that and not even go into the theremin trees things. It's just that story stuck with me because it resonated so well. Don't be a doormat. Be aware of the situations you're in and realize when somebody is violating your principles or leveraging your own principles against you for their own gain, right? And be careful when you do that. I would say be careful when you're doing that because make sure you're not seeing, what would be the word? Make sure you're not seeing enemies everywhere, right? Like, I don't think everyone actually. I mean, he did point out a lot of these games are subconscious, right? It's not like people are. It's not like it's not always the participants are aware that they're playing some kind of fucking game, right? But be aware, like, not everybody's. Just when it happens, you bring it up, like. Why should I be reasonable when you're breaking my? How is it reasonable to allow somebody to come over to my house and break my plates? Why should I? Why is that reasonable? Right? Show more care, dude. I'm not being unreasonable. You're just accusing. You get what I'm saying, right? All right. Now, how does that apply to anything? That I was talking about yesterday. It's probably what, like, what the hell is this guy going on about? He was talking about how people they're immune to being informed. They're immune of new information. Why? Why is this dude talking about this retarded thing that sounds completely unrelated? And I'll tell you why. Right? A good example is there is a medical company out there that has been they've been really I don't want to use the word important, pivotal. We'll say pivotal. We'll say, there is a drug company. I can't say the name because I don't know. This video will get flagged or some retarded nonsense. Medical company been very pivotal in the last year or 3. Right? And that medical company, like, there's a lot of people that suspect that their product is actually hurting people. And that it's profit motive, And that or at least that they skipped through it, right? Like, they rushed a product, they bypassed rigorous testing and stuff. They maybe even cooked the books a little bit just because, like, there was an economic incentive to be the first, right? Whatever, right? So many of the companies may have done this, right? Okay, well, what does that mean? That means that people have been suing the crap out of them. People have been trying to get more information. People have been doing this. Well, some people, this company is in cahoots with the government to disseminate their product, right? Because they need approval to disseminate their product, and stuff like that. Well, people submitted FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests to the government and stuff, and said, hey, we need to see all the research on this stuff. Why is that locked up? Just release the information that was used to approve this particular medical treatment. And these people sued and said, yeah, we're going to try and release that over the course of, I think it was like 75 years. Because we have the sheer amount of information is just so severe, and the manpower that we could dedicate to that proposition, it's going to take us a good 75 years to disseminate that product. Or to disseminate that, to accommodate the needs of that FOIA request. Now, hold on a second. What? All right. How does that apply to that TA stuff? Well, see, there's a lot of people, you show them that, and they're like, well, that's suspicious. And you're like, that's all you got? And by the way, it was the government that was putting the 75, not necessarily the company. The company had already submitted the paperwork to the government, and people were petitioning the government to release what they had from this third-party medical group medical pharma people. 75 damn years. Some ridiculous thing like that. You point out that this is like a thing that happened, and they're like, yeah, that's mighty suspicious. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Hey, could you keep me? Hey, if you see something else on that, you let me know. I think it's definitely suspicious. Needs to be investigated. Blah blah blah. And here's the thing. Here's the thing, man. Like, that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? It definitely needs to be investigated. What do I have on my... I guess that's just the lighting. It sounds reasonable, right? Like, oh, there's something suspicious. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But I'm not going to cast the first stone, I'm not going to prosecute them over that, but I think they should be investigated. That sounds eminently reasonable, doesn't it? But we're not talking a court of law, are we? We're talking about, like, the reason I would send something like that to somebody, the reason I would inform somebody that, that happened, right? And that same company has got, like, under their belt, they have the largest lawsuit settlement in history in their past. Not even that long ago. And it was for advertisement fraud of some stuff that they produced. Right? Largest singles lawsuit settlement in U.S. history at the time. It might maybe something surpassed it by now. I'm assuming something soon will, actually. But you're just like, the reason I would have sent you that isn't because, like, you're going to sit on some jury trial and convict people. It's because, like, it's because you just went to a supermarket and held out. It's because I'm trying to tell you, like, dude, like, why do you trust these people at all? Like, I don't need a jury trial to tell me there's something really weird going on if they're, like, trying to say, like, yeah, let's keep a lid on that for 75 years. Yeah. Like, a person just born now, will be 75 years old by the time you get all the information. If they were born today. What? That sounds like somebody's trying to hide some information. What? We're not talking about a court of law. We're talking about, like, are you going to leverage this thing, this miracle product? I'll just say snake oil. Are you going to leverage this snake oil product? Like, that is enough information already for me to assume that stuff is snake oil. It was a product. I hear about the product, and maybe because snake oil salesmen, they're pretty good at what they do, right? Like, they sell you the idea of the product, and you're like, man, that sounds like good stuff. But then there's, like, evidence here and evidence there and evidence there, and you can stitch all this stuff together. By the way, there's a lot more stuff about that. There's a lot more things I could bring to bear. Where, like, the product had already been out by the time I'd sent this for a good year or something. And there were things piling up. Just like some other events in recent history where it's like, well, I say recent, actually I haven't been that recent now, but, some 2020 events where it's like evidence piles up, and because certain parties and certain people in power dismiss that evidence and say it's unfounded and say it's this, say it's that, because people are dismissive of some of the evidence, right? Possibly for their own benefit, right? Because do they stand to benefit if the evidence is dismissed? Yes. Every time. Every time. So, same thing with this other situation, the one I'm actually talking about, right? Where you have this product where... So, the question is you show them this stuff, and it's like their actual bar for what they consider evidence is actually unreasonable. It's like what they're really waiting for is like someone else that they actually respect, and that wouldn't be me, to actually look at the evidence and say, this is valid. This is valid evidence. I am officially declaring, I'm doing a cross sign like I'm a pope. I'm officially declaring that this evidence is trustworthy. It's true. This is true evidence. It wasn't fabricated. Like, you literally had a court filing, because I think that this got thrown out, the 75-year thing, right? There was literally a court filing that said, yes, there was a stay on this thing that was like 75 years, and you're just like, what the hell? Right? And it had reasons behind it, and you can hand wave all those, but you're trying to tell me all this documentation was generated in less than like a year, right? The documentation was generated in less than a year. It was submitted in less than a year to the government, but the government can't produce this for a FOIA request for 75 years. No, don't buy it. I'm sorry, just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. That one thing by itself is enough for me to go like, yeah, you can do what you want to do with that stuff. Hey, if you want to put that in your body, you want to do that stuff, hey, power to you, buddy. I'm not doing that stuff. And I had already had enough. I had other things that had convinced me because I know my bar. Don't get me wrong. I actually really, really value evidence. But my bar isn't that someone officially declares that something is true. That's not my bar. My bar is that I look at stuff and I go like, what's Occam's razor? What's Hanlon's razor? What is the Overton window? What are the societal forces? What are the things that might affect somebody being able to tell the truth? Are there societal pressures that prevent people from telling the truth, or prevent, kind of coerce people to say false things? Is it possible that some of the people saying false things are actually? It's not that they're lying; it's that they're getting bad information and they just trust the authority. What are the odds, right? What is going on here, right? For instance, I happen to know a lot of medical doctors that, you could just tell, like, there's a lot of them that are just in it for the money, right? And then there's a lot of them, like, they're medical doctors, like they know about drugs because they read what the drugs do and they understand medical school stuff, but it's not like they're scientists. They're medical doctors. They're practitioners. They're not necessarily equipped. Like, if you say this medicine works this way, I will believe you. If you say that there have been trials, and so this piece of paper says these trials resolved this outcome to this specificity, right? In other words, there's a good chance that this test had valid results because the sample size was large enough and all this kind of nonsense, blah, blah, blah. If you tell them all that stuff, even if all that stuff is falsified, they'll just believe it because they're in a field where they've been conditioned to just believe that stuff. And they won't actually fact check it. They will actually, all they will do is they will accept it as rote. That's what they will do. Right? There are a few of them that might dive in deeper and think about things, and maybe they know they have the faculties and the knowledge and the prerequisites to be capable of doing that. But I would say a large majority of them do not. So if you say ask your doctor, I think that's better than nothing else. But if you say ask your doctor, just be aware that, like, have you ever asked an electrician, like, hey, what do you think I should do, blah, 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 or something? Have you ever asked an open-ended question to a specialist or something and gotten an answer that you didn't agree with and that was demonstrably proven after you got a second opinion? Well, why did you get a second opinion? It's because we all know that specialists don't always know everything, and they can't. No one can know everything, and people can be wrong. So there's all kinds of reasons. But anyway, what the point is, what I was really trying to drive home was that one of the reasons that I think a lot of people are immune to information, they're immune to evidence. It's because they actually have an appeal to authority in their head that's playing out in their head. And unless like me, all I want to know is, was this evidence fabricated? Like I want to do enough research to try to figure out, like, was this evidence fabricated? And if I can discern that the evidence was fabricated, or there was a high probability that it was fabricated, right? Then sure, right? And I'll base that information based on lots and lots and lots of factors. But I think what a lot of people do, and that's one of the reasons why poisoning the well is such a strong thing. Like, I know this person. Literally, one of the things that I sent them recently was they thought there was a video that was put out by an organization. They were like, yeah, that dude probably doesn't even exist. It's probably like they just hired some dude off the street. He probably didn't even work at this place, and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, they were just saying all this stuff. And I'm just like, what are you basing that on? Has this organization ever been shown to this other organization that produced this video? Have they ever been shown to be liars? Right? Because you're literally saying, that's Hanlon's razor right there. Right? That's Hanlon's razor applied to a company that when you deep dive into them, you see no evidence to support, like, malice. But what you're proposing is that this organization maliciously went and just hired somebody to be in a video where that person would be probably the most researched person for months and months and months and months and months and months. There's going to be people that are researching this guy for, like, what are the odds that this if you fake something like this, what are the odds that it's going to be found out? Like 100%, right? Right? 100. If you just paid some rando on the street or tried to find the most obscure person, like, somebody's going to raise their hand and say, hey, I know that guy. He doesn't even work for that company, dude. What the right? Right? We're talking about people on Reddit. They were like, there's a cone in the middle of the freaking road in some city somewhere, and on the forum, some people in Reddit were like, we are going to use the power of the internet to make that cone move. We don't know what city that is. We don't know this. We don't know that. So we're just going to post things, and then somebody is going to go move the thing. People find out there's all kinds of crazy things where people super sleuth some crap. It might not have been Reddit. It might have been 4chan. I can't remember. You're talking about, like, if this dude is a faker, you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure the only way this dude could fall from obscurity, the only way this guy actually could disappear and not be found is, like, we're talking like Epstein levels of richness. Or someone of Epstein level of richness, freaking, like, a corporation doing their due diligence to erase the person from the internet. and then that person going into literal hiding. Like, we're talking witness protection levels hiding. Are you for real? And you think that somebody's dumb enough to record somebody saying something like that and think they're going to get away with it? The bar is so crazy there. Like, you'd be found out within a day, dude. I just guarantee it. You'd be, because what that person was saying blew up. It's like 50 million views. That's like a seventh of the American population. If America's 350 million, and you have 50 million views on a video, granted, I bet all 50 million of them are not Americans, because this is a worldwide thing that this was relevant to. It was a worldwide, the whole world would have a vested interest in this, right? The entire planet would possibly want to know this information if they had access to the internet and were informed on how this was relevant to them. The entire planet would want to know this. And you're like, yeah, they probably just paid some rando on the street, and somehow, over the course of several months, nobody's figured out that this was fake. What? Really? Oh, man. And there's been so many things that this organization has done to do that. And yeah, they get painted. Their well has been thoroughly poisoned. And they did it they poisoned their well even further. And that's kind of how this conversation started with that person, is because there have been some moves done by that organization against individuals that worked in that organization that make me go like, well, you know what, from this point forward, I probably won't trust that organization too much. I'm going to take everything they say with a grain of salt, because that's some shady shit that's going on. Anyway, the point is like, they have this normalcy bias. They have an optimism bias. They have multiple biases coming into play that basically make it so when they hear something like, I'm sure their argument would be like the other way around. It's like, dude, you're basically saying there's a giant conspiracy and cover-up in place. And you're just like, do you know how much money that corporation has that tried to cover this stuff up for 75 years? Do you know how powerful they are? How many commercials have you seen? Do you watch any TV? Do you watch any YouTube? Do you listen to the radio? Do you know how many media companies are playing their ads? In fact, it's a meme, because people are getting sick of these ads because it's like, blah, 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 brought to you by blah, blah, blah. Or seriously? And you're saying, it's not like it's like, well, okay, so when there's a cover-up, and it's like a massive cover-up that would have a lot of exposure, what do you think that would look like? That's the same thing about the 2020 thing that I was talking about earlier, or hinting at. I didn't say exactly what it was, but I'm sure it could be filled. You could figure it out. What would that look like? Just play it out in your head. You're like, okay, so you have people in key positions. Maybe you've paid them off, or maybe they were in on it, because there's reason to believe that this stuff's been going on for a long time, but it was just, now they've got it streamlined. They pushed whole hog, and they were risky with it this time. And so it was like demonstrably noticed, right? By millions of people. What would that look like? You would expect whistleblowers all over the place. Yeah, we had that. You would expect a large number of scientists to come, because I'm talking about something else. A large number of scientists. We're talking about the corporation that did the 75 years thing. But these things actually are analogous in both situations. You would expect whistleblowers to come out. Yep, scientists, people came out. There were researchers came out. Yep, that happened too. People that were applying this stuff noticed that some of the practices of how this is being disseminated and distributed and all this, some of that seems shady. That happened. There was some shady, like literally FOIA requests that were like, oh look, there's money shuffling hands. That's like kind of like looks like it's under the table, like they're trying to hide the money by putting it in part of this bill or this thing over here or this, right? It looks there's some shady stuff going on. Yeah, that's check mark. There's a 75-year thing, right? That's a big indicator. Yeah, so there you go. There's another one. That one sounds kind of like a huge thing. That didn't work because the judge, it was too obvious. I don't think they were expecting people to like look to post that court filing. Well, actually, to be honest with you, I think there might be only a subset of people because that didn't go on the news. It didn't. It actually, that 75-year thing did not go on the news. The only reason I know about it is because people that were interested were looking at it, but no, there was no news coverage of it that I'm aware of. People were just looking at it, and then you could follow the links, and you could literally go to the government's website and see the court filings because court filings are public. So actually, maybe a lot of people didn't know that. But then you wonder, like, why didn't the media cover that? Check mark. Right? All these freaking things, they all line up. They all line up perfectly. And you're just like, man, seriously? What would a conspiracy in broad daylight look like? Would it look messy? Would it sound like there's a whole portion of the population that like are like, whoa, what the hell? And then they protest against it, they fight against it, blah, blah, blah. But then those people get censored, thrown off the internet, arrested, killed, because that happened as well. That did happen. Do you see things where people, like, exactly what we see happening is exactly probably what I would expect with a conspiracy, even if it was in Russia. Like, what would the KGB do? Well, like, just think about that. What would be the steps that the KGB do? How would they get conformity? I'm trying to think of, there's a word I was trying to, how would they get consent of the governed, so to speak? There's a term for it, specifically fake consent of the governed, perceived consent of the governed, plausible deniability that, that hey, look, you don't have to pick up your pitchfork because, look, everybody kind of agrees, I mean, except for you, Mr. I'm gaslighting you. Except for you, everybody else, for the most part, maybe not in this